Hi, everybody. Just welcoming everybody from the waiting room. We've got a few to get in tonight, so we'll just wait a minute or two. Our Mac is returning. Brilliant. That's good news. Great. Is that pretty much everyone, Cindy?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. Welcome to Embercombe Online tonight. We're delighted that you are joining us from all over the world, looking at who is here. This is one of our free talks. We do many during the year. And tonight we're really delighted to be welcoming our founder, Mac Macartney, who I'm sure most of you will be familiar with. His work really underpins everything that we do here at Embercombe. And tonight he will be talking about the law, which again is something that is one of our underpinning things that we think about in everything that we do. So just to introduce that a little bit, here we are after COP26, and I'm sure we've all got mixed feelings and mixed views about that. But it feels like we are at a pivot point, really, as human beings in our evolution as a species. And yeah, I guess we must all ask ourselves the question, are we going to be able to evolve into creatures that can live in balance with the rest of the natural world, or are we not? It feels like this is the moment where we have to be asking ourselves these questions. And really here at Embercombe, we look very closely at what it means to live in balance with the rest of the living world. Are there somehow instructions or laws that we need to follow in the way that we live, in the way that we go about our lives, in the way that we make our decisions? And this has kind of been a question for us for a long time, you know, what is the law of nature? What are those instructions? You know, where do they reside? Can we put them together from what we all know? Can we recover them from the natural world itself? Are there people around the world that we can bring into council on this? So it feels really exciting that we are about to set off on a year of conversation with many elders and wisdom keepers and law seekers around the world. This is our statement of intent, really, us saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We would love you to join us. We're opening up tonight to say, hey, come aboard. Yes, and tonight we are hearing directly from Mac about his feelings on this. We will continue throughout next year with Mac talking to some of the people that he thinks are holding some of this information. So without further ado, Mac, I'll hand over to you, but just to say what the way we'll structure this evening is that Mac will speak for a while. I will then ask some questions if I have any, and then we'll open the floor for you to ask questions as well. So I'm not sure the timings on that, but we'll kind of take it as it comes. What we'll do is ask you to not write in the chat if that's possible. If you absolutely have to, or if you need something from either Cindy and I, then of course do. But if you start adding questions to the chat, then we'll be able to spot them kind of when we open it for questions, so that we don't miss anything when we're going along. So over to you, Mac. Sorry, that was longer than I anticipated, but over to you. The law of nature, what does that mean to you?
Thanks, Rachel. Hello, everyone. It's really lovely to see you all here. And I had a glitch with my internet earlier, and was facing the rather frightening thought that I might have to go and do this somewhere other than my cabin. But I really wanted to be in my cabin if I could, because I like it here. I feel settled in here. And I'm surrounded by stories in here, which is not to say that there aren't loads of stories outside, of course, but many of these are very personal to me. And many of them in some way or other touch this subject. I guess I wanted to begin by saying, in no way do I pretend, as it were, that I somehow know the law and then going to sort of, eloquently express it to you. I think a far more truthful way of this would probably be that all of us have some sense of this, if indeed we subscribe to the idea that somehow there is or are a body of laws, or there is a law. Many of you, I think, might well subscribe to this, a feeling that in some way we have broken a promise as a species, at least in our Western, more developed world, broken a law somehow with life. Many of us may feel that we have somehow or other got ourselves lost. And everything that is happening at the moment is about trying to find our way home again. And I do certainly feel like that. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of perambulate around this theme of the law and sort of occasionally dodge in there and try and sort of touch the core. But most, if not all, of the Indigenous people I've known have always taught and shared with stories and in a circular fashion. So I plan to do the same. Now, about 25 years ago, I attended a conference called the Social Venture Network Conference. I don't know if they're still held, but they were held. I'm not sure if it was every year, but every few years. And there were some quite amazing speakers there. And I had found myself into this conference. It was before I started speaking myself. And I took my seat and I sort of glanced around the audience, see who was in there with me. And there were several hundred people. It was quite a large event. And my eyes landed on this one individual. He was clearly First Nations person, and he had many of the qualities that we tend to associate with them when those same people are somehow really sitting in the dignity, really, of their culture. He was a small man. I'm a small man, at least in height, and he was smaller than me. But emanating out from him was this sort of sense that this person, within this whole conference, there was at least one who really knew who he was. And I really enjoyed the feeling. He, I think, was maybe the opening speaker. I can't quite remember. But he got up and he moved down through the people and he took the stage. And there were a great number of people who are looking forward to hearing him speak. His name was and is, because he's still alive, Chief Orrin Lyons. And Orrin Lyons is one of the Onondaga tribe, part of the Iroquois Confederacy. And he has been speaking and teaching for a long time. I think he's in his 90s now. And someone I know who knows him apparently asked him, because he used to be a boxer. He was a featherweight boxer, amongst other things. They said that when was the last time you raised your fists, Orrin, in anger or in defense, as it were? And he's something like 90. I don't know how old he is. He's, let's say, 94. And he said last year, which rather startled the questioner. He said, yes, he said, one of my brothers, got very upset with the stand I've taken against casinos and came for him. Can you imagine doing it? Came for him. He's 90 something years old. And taps this guy on the nose and deters him from any further provocation. He's a special person. He's a really amazing orator, and there are no airs and graces about him, really. I don't know him well. I would like to, but I can only say that he has touched me a lot. When he started speaking, he began by facing the east and speaking to the east. And it was clearly some form of acknowledgement. I guess everybody somehow in that conference felt that they were part of a ceremony. He spoke in detail, expressing his gratitude to all manner of things that he clearly associated with the East. When he'd done that, which took about 10 minutes, he slowly moved to the next direction and took another 10 minutes doing that. The atmosphere in the audience was beginning to get a bit fidgety because there were a lot of people who'd come and were really wanting to hear what Orrin Lyons was going to say. And after that 10 minutes, he turned to the next direction. And then he spoke in gratitude to that direction. And then he turned to the fourth direction. And by this time we were running at something like 40 minutes or whatever. And he basically stopped, finished, and walked off the stage. And it was really interesting because I'd suddenly realized, of course, I realized this is his talk. He's sending us a message in the only way he knows how to say something very powerful to us. At least half the audience were not happy with this. They felt they'd come for the talk and they hadn't got the talk. They didn't see that he'd given them probably anything of any value, which in himself I rather doubt he was surprised about. What I realized, well, I didn't realize at the time, but he had shared with us a little piece, a central piece of his people's culture and wisdom. Now, like many of you probably, and a huge number of others, some months ago I read Robin Wall Kimmerer's amazing and beautiful and wonderful book called Braiding Sweetgrass. And should you happen to be anywhere amongst the minority who have not yet read that book, I really suggest that you find it. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I'll show you my copy of Braiding Sweetgrass. And you see all this, here's all these little notes. I don't usually do this, but I did with that one. So I'm reading this. I'm reading her words. And she's speaking about the Thanksgiving address. The Thanksgiving address, okay? Very, very big and central part of their culture. And as I'm reading it, a slight movement captures my attention, my right field of vision. And I see my iPhone, which has been completely motionless for the last hour, begin the most extraordinarily slow journey towards me. It has no case on it, so you know it's got that amazingly slidey feel to it. And it's just moving so slowly that I can hardly see it moving, but it is moving. I spend 5 minutes watching my phone as it very slowly, incrementally, millimeter by millimeter, hardly perceptible in movement, moves the 2 feet from the sofa cushion along right to where my hand is resting on the settee. So I pick it up and I tap Onondaga, the address. And there on my screen is the most gorgeous, wonderful, amazingly beautiful woman being interviewed by a First Nations young girl. She speaks and I am utterly rapt. That's just wonderful wisdom coming from this woman. I close my phone, look back down at my book, and as I return to Robin's book, she's writing about Frida Jacques. And I know that this is the woman that my iPhone has just invited me to watch, and it was. If you find her on YouTube, then take some time and listen to this gorgeous person. I think that Orrin Lyons, Frida Jacques, countless other people who hold somehow this deep reverence for this life we have, the deep commitment to do everything in their power within the spectrum of gifts, challenges and opportunities that they've received in this life to share. I think they are speaking of the law. In one of the talks that Orrin gave, I think this summer, he came out with this very confronting statement. He said, there is no mercy in nature, only the law. There is no mercy in nature, only the law. Now, I've been contemplating and dwelling on this ever since, really. I think it's like quite difficult for many of us in our culture to even entertain this thought somehow. Those of us that love nature, many of us will speak of nature in a way of love and tenderness and everything. And of course, she is all of those things. But nature is also my cat, and maybe some of the other cats who are in on this talk, pounce on mice or birds. There is no mercy in the cat's claws. There is no concept of mercy in the cat. The cat does what cat does. The fox, when it enters the hen coop and slaughters and slaughters and slaughters, doesn't do so, in my view, from cruelty or vindictiveness of it just like seeing chickens suffer. It's fox. It does what fox does. And so it goes with nature, it seems to me. So when we, as a species, as it were, consciously or unconsciously choose to go renegade, when we decide that actually the only true law is that we are the law giver, the law keeper, and the law guardian, when we, as it were, mount the steps and take the apex of that triangle and assume that that is our rightful position, then there is only one thing that ultimately nature can do, and that is, well, warn, persuade, cajole, use different means, but ultimately exercise whatever needs to be done. And that seems to me this really pretty terrifying situation we find ourselves in now. So as you know, I won't go into it all, but you know it all. The turning of our oceans into a toilet, the destruction of our soils, the poisoning of our air, our water. These really are the symptoms of a species that's gone mad, that is actually insane, and is now embarking on a self-harming journey because it knows that it's lost. Now, I'm not saying that it's irredeemable, because perhaps I would if I knew, although I'm not sure if it would be much help or serve any useful purpose. But the truth is, I do not know. I just only know. And even this is because I believe, if you like, what I've been told, but there is enough evidence, if you like, around me to suggest this, that we are walking this pathway and are very close to the cliff edge, or maybe tilting over it. And we have different opinions about this. Some would say we're over the edge and beginning that descent and it's irreversible. Some of us would say we're approaching the edge, and so on and so forth. I'm not particularly interested, to be quite honest, because I have enough to contend with trying to live this life well. And one of the things that the peacemaker said was never take hope from the people. Okay, never take that away. If you take that away, then they will look at their children, as it were, and they will contemplate what rabbits do when they face great trauma, and that is they kill their children because there is no place for them. So let's not go there. Let's entertain this thought that extraordinary things happen. Most of us have one or more examples of extraordinary things happening. That life is beautiful beyond imagining, and that the only sane response to life really is that very address that Orrin Lyons gave to the Social Venture Network, which Robin Wall Kimmerer writes about in her book, that Frida Jacques speaks about. And that is the song of gratitude and thanksgiving for being given everything, even the priceless gift of human choice. And that, it seems to me, is one of the things that separates us from my little cat. Because my little cat will catch mice and is not burdened with thinking about the morality of her actions. It's just being cat. It's a little bit different for us. Many of you will know of Simon Sinek's YouTube talks. One of them, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And he presents us with this idea that as leaders, we need to entertain this question of why do we do what we do? What is your purpose as a leader? He's talking in reference to businesses. the businesses that ask, that know why they do what they do, that have a profound and strong purpose, he suggests are the businesses that prosper. When I saw that talk, I thought to myself, yes, this is what we seem to have lost in our civilized world, as it were. The answer to the question, why? What is the purpose of a human life? Why are we here? What is our role? There are, of course, some who do truly think, and they have a great deal of good evidence to present this question or to arrive at this conclusion, that the world might well be better off without us. But Yellowstone, where everybody thought would be better off without the wolves, when the wolves came back, there was this trophic cascade of just sort of miraculous, massive, burgeoning explosion of biodiversity within Yellowstone. And as a friend of mine says, we, Homo sapiens, are a keystone species. If we acted in alignment with the law of taking our place in the circle of all things, if we acted in alignment of sort of holding hands with our family, of all our family of human and more than human beings, and truly sought and understood that our lives were here in service to our Mother Earth and to everything that is beautiful in this world, then, you know, some extraordinary things would happen. I do want to share this with you, which is why I'm glancing at my phone at the moment, trying to find it. Ah, got it. So in my family, and I've decided it's no point in trying to pretend otherwise, it's just easiest to say it and then it's done, sort of thing. A lot of people, I've been asking them recently, do you watch any television? And something about the company I keep, there's an awful lot of them say no, which kind of grinds me to a bit of a halt with this, because in my family, the television gets switched on and every now and then I make a feeble attempt to switch it off, but it usually comes back on again at some point or other. And I'm not entirely unhappy with this, I have to say, because there are some pretty amazing things on there. And the other day I watched this thing, the Wild Gardener, I think, Colin Stafford Johnson. So he's a wildlife photographer and has spent his whole life going around our world, filming beauty, filming nature. And, you know, he's had a very successful career. But at some point he said he just realized that every year what he was filming was a pale version of what he saw the year before. And he's been doing this for many years. Every year he realizes that actually what he's doing is chronicling the extraordinarily rapid decline of nature and vitality and life around our earth. And he said he reached a point where he wasn't satisfied with simply performing this role. He had to do something, no matter how small, that was about restoring and reinvigorating and rejuvenating something. And his mother, he's Irish, his mother had kept hold of a single acre of many acres that have been sold, a single acre in County Wicklow. And he goes there at the beginning of this short series, and it's a rather unloved looking piece of land. I mean, nobody's there, so there is some wildlife there, but it looks unloved, it feels unloved. And he sets about with this 1 acre to try to do what humans can do when they fall in love or are back in love with beauty. And it's just absolutely extraordinary. If you can bring yourself to turn in your TV and find it, or iPlayer or whatever, do. He creates this wildflower meadow with a pond in the middle, and the whole place is just heaving with life. Human beings, orientated, in service, and not, as it were, playing this childish adolescent sort of who's stronger than who game with nature, with life, can be the guardians, in my view, and the what's the word, the stewards, the gardeners of extraordinary things on this earth. I'm very fond of Colin Stafford Johnson, never met him, but I love the simplicity of the man, the ordinariness of him, the kind of way that he speaks in that lovely soft Irish accent, and how clearly he transmits to those watching his tender love of this little acre of land, and the joy that he takes in having done this single, tiny, small act of blessing. What would happen if we did ask that question everywhere? What is the purpose of a human life? If we took that into our nurseries, our primary schools, into our homes, into all the places I speak of as the children's fire, governments, businesses, boards, everywhere. What is the purpose? It's so strange, isn't it? Because we know what makes us happy. Endless amount of research have been done about what makes us happy, and it's pretty simple. You know, it's friends, it's community, it's sharing, it's nature, it's family, it's whatever. It's all the if you just have to list all the pretty much ordinary things that everybody loves and nobody cares about, so to speak, you'd have it. It's just there. What would happen if we did that? The circle and the power of the circle. Why, in so many indigenous cultures, does the circle present itself? And of course, it's not that complex. We all of us have some sense of it. We're familiar with the idea of the circle of the seasons. I'm even now with my little 4.5-year-old, he's asking, you know, why the sun rises over there and then goes down over there, you know. So we're beginning to have that conversation about how it's actually us that's going around the sun. A concept that boggles his mind completely. And to be honest, still does mine. Everybody else is thinking about quantum physics. I'm still amazed at the radio. I'm still like how on earth does that work? You know. So his little mind is trying to grapple with the fact that we might be on something that is going around this great sun. One of the only great things about an ocean voyage I did on a big tall ship across the Atlantic Ocean, which, by the way, of course, should be an epic, wonderful, deeply profound experience, except there was no wind. So we motored across the Atlantic Ocean. I cannot express to you how grief-stricken I was. I climbed to the very, very highest point of the highest mast. And at that height, the thing is moving like, I don't know how many feet, but 40, 50 feet span as it moves like this. And I'm right at the top. And I thought, and now I can see it because I am in the middle of a circle, aren't I? I look around the whole span. I see nothing except the curvature of the ocean tilting away from me. And this tiny little boat and this mast in the middle and Mac standing there. And it's feeling this extraordinary thing, the circle. many of you know Embercombe Stone Circle, and the building of that stone circle is a prayer to the people of these islands that we should wake again and remember our Earth Mother, that we should put aside all feelings of embarrassment in speaking about her in this way and begin to stand for the world that our children will inherit and for the world that many of us living will experience. We want and we need, and it really is a need, to be close, to connect, and to belong, to be loved, respected, appreciated, and seen and heard. So when I asked my teachers about what is the purpose of a human life, they said to learn and grow. That's why the spirits that become human beings come to this earth, they said, to learn and grow, to change essence, because that is the opportunity of this lifetime. So we are essence, and then we take a life. In that life on earth, we take a form. And in a sense, we are dealt a hand of cards. They suggested that that hand of cards has something to do with whatever is behind us in a time and place I know nothing of. But we have that hand of cards, let's say. And then we live our life and we play those cards. He said that the choices we make during a lifetime, that it's possible to change essence. And that change of essence is caused by the choices we make. But there is no rule that you can only change essence in one direction. In other words, something that we might crudely call better. We can make multiples of choices that will take us in any direction. We can coarsen or we can refine. We can do anything. That is the great gift and challenge given to humanity. And then we die. And whatever it is, in whatever manner in which we have shifted essence during the lives, that is what we are on death. This is what they shared with me. For me, this comes into the realm of like, you know, I could choose to adopt that. It's a belief. I'm generally speaking not too big on beliefs because, you know, I prefer just to experience. You know, I've always been struck by the fact that the old dialect Lakota have no word for belief because they didn't believe in anything. There was no concept of belief. They lived within it, experienced it. And to believe in something, you know, you meet someone smarter than you and suddenly you're not sure if you do believe it anymore, sort of thing, or someone more informed. Beliefs seem to me pretty fragile. So I'm not hanging a great deal on this idea, but I like the teaching of this. It basically says, you have the opportunity to make choices in this life. And those choices will describe the human being that you are. The one that you were, the one that you are, the one that you will become. In consideration of this talk today, I wrote this. I said, what does the circle say to me? The circle says, to know joy, you must meet grief. To be wise, you must experience. To value light, you must know darkness. To value darkness, you must brave the unknown. To find yourself, you must first be lost. To love life, you must know of death. To love death, you must know that life springs eternal. To make a choice, you must first see that you have a choice. The circle teaches that stasis is a phantom and does not exist. That birth, growth, death, and transformation function everywhere forever. The circle teaches gratitude. But if you're disconnected from that which feeds you, clothes you, fills your life with wonder, if you're disconnected, then how easy is it, of course, to feel or experience gratitude? The circle teaches that inside the seed is the dream of the tree. I just want to come back for this idea of Orrin Lyons. There is no mercy in nature, only the law. One other reason why I really love this is that I think it places it firmly back in our hands. And it says, it's up to you. And some might say, well, it isn't quite up to me because whoever and whatever has already done this to such a degree that I'm now rendered impotent in my ability to respond. But I think that's a belief. We don't know that that's true. And so I feel then if we truly love life, then we come up with something different. It would be something like, irrespective of whatever the outcome may be, irrespective of however things will work out, I have the choice of how I will live this life. And I choose to live it in service to beauty and to do everything that I can, to feel it all, to identify the gift that I have, that I can bring and bring and bring and bring, but also revel and delight in everything that life brings. Because I don't like this idea of the martyr, scourging themselves and depriving themselves of every pleasure. I think that's such a sort of, again, another symptom of the insanity I'm speaking of. No, I think we should enjoy the food that we eat, love it, revel in our gardens and the beauty we can create, delight in the sound of children playing, feel the sadness and the pain, knowing that we're growing older and that this isn't going to last forever. Because if it did last forever, I'm not sure we'd ever be able to understand what love is. We just take it for granted. The fact that it will finish helps us actually find the deep appreciation. The adventure of our time is this inquiry around the law, I think, and then the pledging that we make to stand visible next to it and let every step we take through this life be our best effort to walk a prayer and walk a blessing, knowing that we'll always screw up from time to time. Things go bad, that's just the normal stuff. But we don't need to be defeated by that. A sense of humor is very helpful. So I thought I would conclude there for the moment, Rachel, and invite you to sort of take it on to any questions and things. But I can I can speak further, of course, but it feels to me I've done enough for the moment.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was beautiful. And I don't often have no questions, but I can honestly say I don't have any questions. That was that covered everything that I wanted to hear you speak of. So I think maybe we should have just a moment's silence after that. If people have questions, I'm sure other people will, then please raise your hand electronically so we can see them. We have about 10-12 minutes, so we'll get a couple of those answered. But maybe if we just have a moment's silence, you're welcome to put anything in the chat or to raise your hand, but it would, I think, just a moment's silence to digest some of what you've said there, Mac. Okay, is there anybody that would like to ask a question? So Benedict's asking, Mac, whether you'd be able to write the circle passage down that you wrote for tonight. I'm sure there are many of us that would love that too. Maybe that's something that we could put somewhere, perhaps on our Facebook and website tomorrow. Well, whenever you manage to do that.
Very happy to do that, yes.
I don't have a question, Mac, but this is Steph, by the way.
Steph.
I haven't got a video at the moment, but I'm just with inside the seed is the dream of a tree, and what that's doing to my heart at the moment feels really, really powerful. And I'm not quite, I don't have any words yet for it, but it's sort of, something's happening around it. Yeah. Is that, where's that from? Is that?
It just came out of my mouth.
Cool.
But I don't think it has much to do with me.
Yeah. It's something about the possibility and the potential of every moment or something like that. That's what I'm with at the moment. So.
Yes, can I just say, you see, inside the seed, that is every child in their mother's womb, is the dream of something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we are already trees, as it were. We're above ground, we're, at the moment anyway, we're growing. But what happens, let's say, to that tree when it's sort of loved and cared for, or even pruned, when some kind of restorative act, when other trees fall and light floods in. In other words, our stories are not done. Our stories continue to unfold. However, whatever might be our backstory, we have now, and then we have now. And so it goes. I like this a lot because there's not everything in my life that I, by any stretch of the imagination, I can look back on and necessarily feel good about. But I do have now, and then I have now. And so it will be. And I could choose to be radical about it. I don't have to choose a sort of, I don't have to be like my iPhone. Barely perceptible movement as it creeps towards my hand, I could choose to be rather more dynamic than that, which doesn't mean to say that it's all about action, by the way, because I don't think so. But I do think that those that endlessly speak about, as it were, only emphasize the receptive qualities, miss the active. The ones that always go on the active miss the receptive, if you see what I mean. I think we're both, we're all of it. We're east, west, south, and north. We have these four powers of the human self: our bodies, our minds, our emotion, our spirit, air, earth, fire, and water, so to speak. And that is the real, that's the amazing bit. It's like the gyroscope. When you put the bit of string around it, yep, and you pull it, and it spins, and it's just spinning. That's, to me, that's us in our true nature. We are spinning, we're in dynamic balance. It's not passive balance, it's dynamic balance. And all kinds of things are happening. It's very exciting. It's really, really amazing.
We've got a couple more questions, and one from Hannah and one from Ellie. Hannah, would you like to unmute yourself first?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm not entirely sure of the form of the question. I think I was struck the other day. I was having a wonderful walk with my dog in a park in Bristol, and I got rushed with this sense that I think probably most of us here have had, of that complete kind of falling in love with the world. And then I was really curious to feel beyond that there was this kind of, there was like this sadness there, and I was really confused by this sadness. And I think the reason I'm kind of like bringing it up, I'm not sure it's the question, but I was really pleased to hear you, Mac, talk about how nature is, what did you say? Was I listening? You know, it's not all the flowers and the beauty and the joyousness. You know, there's something really, I've just been through a lot of grief. I've lost a parent, and actually how essential the gritty, bleak, dark stuff is. But also knowing that in this kind of culture that I find myself in, that I find myself being very uncomfortable with having both of those at the same time. Like, I just wanted to fall in love with the world. I didn't want to have this sadness. So I don't know what I'm asking, but I just wondered if you could speak to that.
Yeah, well, it is a theme that I feel, I just know it for myself, and I recognize it in others. But you know, I am actually a naturally, I think, very happy person. I love my life. I'm joyful, and I love having fun and playful. I don't always appear like these things, I think, but they are essential to me. And I've often thought a webcam in my house might be quite helpful to present a more rounded picture of this this Mac. But so I love those things, and I'm not willing to give them away. I'm not willing to be bowed by the ocean of grief that's in the world. Equally, and I'm speaking personally now, but I know that I have the capacity to be cruel. I know I have the capacity to hurt. I know that I have exercised both those things at different times in my life. And I am no saint, you know. I have used and probably abused power, fortunately not in really unpleasant ways, but I have, you know. I remember in a particular talk a long time ago, I have to add, but somebody asked a very sensible question that suddenly made me realize that I had sort of whatever the word was, that anyway, that he was correct. And in that moment of time, I did not have the good grace to say, gosh, like, thank you. Yes, you're right. Everything I've said for the last 45 minutes, if you like, has been predicated on whatever. I didn't. I kind of found a way to brush off his comment and move on. I don't think that was a very kind or generous thing to do. I think I, in some sense, I sort of made him appear foolish, which I think, if I can put it in this, it's a bit strong, but it's unforgivable, if you see what I mean. And I don't accept that kind of behavior from myself. So, you know, in other words, we all of us have the capacity to be kind, to be unkind, to be generous, to be mean, to be discerning, and to be its opposite, everything. And so, yes, I feel that I have learned a lot by seeing the darker and experiencing the darker or more hidden. I prefer probably actually hidden aspects of myself, parts of myself that I'm a bit frightened of, or that lurk in the shadows, as it were. But in the end, I just want it all. I want the full pitch. I want the fullness of who I am. And that, by the way, is what I think my little boy might truly benefit from. If he was able to just say, you know, within, my dad was real. He was a lot of things. And he made an effort to be honest, which sometimes he found quite hard. I think I'd be really pleased with that. I think, yeah, wow, gosh, that's okay. So yes, and lastly, just to add, you know, this idea that in such tumultuous times of such profound suffering for so many millions of people, and whatever it is at the moment, the likelihood that it'll be far worse in the future. I don't wish to plug my ears not to hear those screams, but neither do I wish to cease going outside at night to see the moon rise, or to rest in the happiness that I experience every time spring comes again. You know what I mean? All these things.
Thank you, Mac. We've got 2 minutes. Ellie, your hand has disappeared. Would you like to ask your question?
I'll keep it short, Mac. Hello.
Hi,
I just picked up on something you said while you were talking, which was, if you're disconnected, how can you experience gratitude? Which was actually, it was quite, caught my breath a bit, because I'm in the middle of reading a book by someone called Lucy Jones called Losing Eden. And I'd written this down today. She actually wrote in there, nature picked me up by the scruff of the neck and rested me in her teeth a while. And I think it was so poignant, because it's from that stillness in nature that actually action is pushed into us. It makes us aware of that movement of service that's needed. And interestingly, her book is very much about how lack of access to nature is having significant impact on the mental health of children. And really my question is, it's not so much a question, because obviously with the children's fire and everything that's going on with the United Nations focusing around children now, is for people who do have children, if you had a word of wisdom for them, you know, these people who live in cities where less than 1% of the land is green, what would that word of wisdom be to them?
Wow. Gosh, Ellie, you know, everywhere within arm's length, as it were, everywhere, nature exists. So maybe we're in the middle of a city, but there will be a tree somewhere close. There'll be some extraordinary little mosaic of weeds that are breaking through the concrete and spoiling the nice neatness of the whatever. There will be the light and the dark. There'll be places where you can go where you can see the moon. I think in the same way that the Kogi speak to the child, I won't go into the whole story, but where the child shaman that's kept in the cave for 7 years, same way that they speak to that child of the beauty that exists in this outside world, I would to their child in this way, to let the child's imagination will explode given the invitation, because that is what we're gifted with. And then every year, or if it's possible, more, there needs to be a journey out. There has to be a journey out to actually go and stand, let's say, on the cliffs at Gara Rock on the South Hams coast and see the surf pounding in on the sea in a little bay and realize that this is it. There has to be another year, say, when you go for a forest experience. It needs to be contact with animals. It absolutely needs to be contact with animals, because animals are heal us, I think. And we birds, or most of us, hanging out a feeder can get birds to come close. So I would say she has a challenge, but she needs to be creative. And she needs to know that what's embryonic in that child is to love this world and then act in service to her, later on. But to do that, she must be nourished. And to nourish her, she needs nourishing in her imagination and with words and with books and with stories, and of course on the screen. But she must be actually taken out where she can touch earth, smell the salt on the air, feel her breath and heart pumping as she climbs this hill or mountain. There are ways to do this. The trouble is that there's not even a story for many such people that this is a possibility.
I'm nodding vigorously at that point. I think that's the bit that's missing.
Could you say that again?
I said I'm nodding vigorously at this moment in time, because that imagination needs to be given to them, because they themselves have suffered as well.
Yes. Well, and on that, I wanted very much to just share this with you. You understand, of course, by now that Robin Wall Kimmerer is my pin-up, So on reciprocity, knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. I just thought that's really important, because there are so many people who know that they love the earth, and that does many good things, but it's still only half. It's finding those experiences when we get to actually know that we are loved. And I think that's like the child. The child doesn't need just to know what they love. They need to feel loved. Of course, everybody needs to feel loved. And in feeling love, we can express love so much more easily. And perhaps it's not even possible without it. So I just wanted to, that was, in my book, that was page 121, but it may not be the same in your copy or your edition. Shall I say it again? Like that?
Yeah, one more time.
Yeah. Knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. And you see that we're way beyond belief at that point. We're, you know, that's the truth and reality of a kiss freely given and freely received.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mac. I've let you go over, which I never let people do. So because it's you and because it's been such a beautiful evening, thank you so much. And I'm going to take 2 more minutes now. You said that the adventure of our time is this inquiry on the law, about the law. And I'm completely with you on that. And just to remind people that our quest for next year is to continue this conversation. So you can find out more details on our website about that. And we also have a membership scheme, which we've been made live today, that includes this conversation about the law. So yes, doing a bit of a salesy bit there at the end, but yeah, that is there now. So lovely to see you all here tonight. Mac, I'm sure all of us would love to say thank you for your incredibly wise words tonight. It just has felt so timely and beautiful and important. So thank you so much. And go well, everybody. We will see you again soon. Thank you, Cindy, for your support. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Night, night.